Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the grand finale of TCS iON IntelliGem 2022. Before we begin, may I please request and welcome Ms. Shalini Gopal Krishnan, Head TCS iON IntelliGem, to set the ball rolling.
Happy New Year and a warm welcome to one and all to the national grand finale of the 4th edition of TCS iON IntelliGem. I take great pleasure today in greeting all the students, parents, educators, friends and families who have gathered, of course safely from their homes, to cheer and support the finalists of TCS iON IntelliGem. Hearty congratulations to all our finalists. Since its inception in 2018, IntelliGem has evolved into a meticulously and beautifully structured contest designed to inculcate the much needed 21st century skills mindset in our younger generation. That would be the pillars of the future. The topics, the rounds, the evaluation have been diligently put together by a team of experts. The journey of the student from the day they register with us, navigating through the various rounds, is as exciting for them as it is for us. The fun-filled learning experience in the IntelliGem student community has been immensely enriching, as echoed by the students themselves. Even though every student may not reach the pre-final and final stages of the contest, we have tried to make sure that they take back with them a very rich learning experience. And that is what IntelliGem stands for. Every child is a gem. At TCS, we are proud that TCS iON IntelliGem is the only largest national level contest on the 21st century skills in India, with a focus to nurture the nation builders of tomorrow. And we are thankful to all the schools and educators who have made this wonderful journey possible for us by extending their support and guidance at every stage. So without much ado, I would hand over the mic to the host and let the finale begin. All the very best to our finalists. Thank you.
A big hello and a warm welcome to each one of you to this wonderful program. Before we progress any further, let us introduce you to your host, the young and charismatic Rashmi Furtado. An alumnus of the prestigious NITK Surathkal, she went on to become the only professional woman quiz host across Asia that she presently is. The co-founder of TeacherTribe.world, she has many a feather in her large hat. From co-hosting Tata Crucible to being the first woman to host a quiz show in Kuwait, she's also hosted programs in Singapore and Dubai. Business World rated her as 40 under 40 for content creators. She was also conferred the iconic woman for creating a better world for all from the Women Economic Forum. Time for us to get started. Please welcome your host, Miss Rashmi Furtado.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. A warm welcome to each and every one of you and all the children out there watching this grand finale of Global Citizenship TCS iON IntelliGem 2021-22. TCS iON was one among the first few companies who started and identified 21st century skills as something very important for the future of a child. Even before the 21st century skills became a mandate for school children, TCS iON was a pioneer to start different initiatives in this space. Greycap's Knowledge Tribe has worked together with TCS iON and has carefully curated some of these products and some of these topics for these children. With us today, we have two very prominent judges. Both of them are doctors, one a medical doctor and the second one with a PhD. Dr. Sabah Mansoor, who is joining us from the United Kingdom, and Dr. Shashikant, who's joining us from National Institute of Technology, Karnataka. More on our judges a little later, but for now, let me introduce our finalists to you. These finalists have joined us after going through multiple rounds of testing with aptitude and application. They have gone through multiple rounds of exams and also personal interviews to reach this grand finale here today. So let us quickly get to know who these contestants are and then get into the game. First up, we have Parvati S. from Sri Kumaras Children's Home, Bangalore. That's Parvati for you. Following her is Ipshito Ghosh from St. Joseph's College, Kolkata. Vasundhara from DAV Public School, Chennai. Up next is Mihir Apte from the Orchid School, Pune. Marva Sachad from St. Thomas Residential School, Thiruvananthapuram. And completing this lineup here today is Samir Murthy from Sri Kumaran's Children's Home, Bangalore. Ladies and gentlemen, these children have joined us from the length and breadth of our country, and these students are from classes 7, 8 and 9. Well, let us get into the game. The first round of this grand finale of Global Citizenship, the senior category, me in 30 seconds. Here we go. If you have watched some of these events before, you will know how impressive these children are. And believe me, at their age, I'm very sure most of us wouldn't be able to introduce ourselves in a manner that they do. So let's first get to know all of them. First up, we have Parvati. Please introduce yourself. Your time, 30 seconds, starting now.
Hi, I'm Parvati S of class 7. My hobby is reading. I take classical music lessons and I enjoy making art. I find every culture equally beautiful, diverse and unique in its own way. I aspire to be a global citizen to help the community and the world. Like the popular idiom, one drop of water forms many ripples, one good action by us can form a chain reaction. My school has a few campaigns like no wastage of food and water conservation, and I actively take part. I'd like to join an NGO in the future.
All right, thank you, Parvati. Well, she is only in class 7 and she already knows that she wants to join an NGO in the future. Lot of clarity there from her. Let's move on to Ipshito Ghosh from St. Joseph's College, Kolkata. Ipshito, your 30 seconds of time starting now.
A global citizen, according to me, is someone who believes in the ideology that his or her identity is global and not restricted by any regional or national borders. Greetings to one and all present here. This is Ipshito K. Ghosh of Class 8 of St. Joseph's College, Kolkata. And I am, and I believe I am, a global citizen. The best thing about being a global citizen for me is, in Eugene V. Debs' words, I have no country to fight, for my country is the world and I am a citizen of the earth. This will become all the more important in the 21st century when all countries need to unite to fight against the various supranational threats which we face. And when this global community is formed, it is my belief that it will be the global citizens who will bind it together, strengthening the ties of the human race. So when I grow up, I want to be an essential part of this community. And according to me, hence, global citizenship is an essential and fundamental skill in the 21st century. Thank you.
Thank you, Ipshito. Well, that's the global citizen there for you, where his country is this world. Moving on, to Vasundhara. 30 seconds of time starting now.
We are not citizens of just our hometowns or nations, but of the world, said Socrates. Good evening, everyone. Let's make this world an exception. Distinction in caste and creed be out of our perception. Whole world be a family, tied with humanity. That's a global citizen's identity. Having run marathons for social causes and being a successful delegate in the Model United Nations, I'm a proud global citizen. Let me conclude with a 3 millennium old Tamil poem, Yadum Ure Yavarum Kelir, which explains global citizenship with just 4 words.
Thank you, Vasundhara. Vasundhara, what do those words mean? If you could just explain, because I'm pretty sure most of our viewers wouldn't understand, or at least many wouldn't understand Tamil.
Definitely, ma'am. So, Yadum Ure, Yavarum Kelir means that every city is my city and everyone is my kith and kin. The most astonishing part of this is that it was told 3000 years ago.
Wonderful. Thank you, Vasundhara. All right, coming up next to introduce himself is Mihir Apte from the Orchid School, Pune. Mihir, your 30 seconds of time starting now.
Good evening to the esteemed judges and my fellow participants. I believe in the idea of global citizenship as I understand that one's identity transcends all boundaries. I believe that the next step in our development as a species is to globalize, while also embracing and celebrating our culture and our differences. Respect is one of the foundations of being a global citizen, and having an open mind helps in your growth. I'm learning the Bhagavad Gita with my grandparents, and I firmly believe that the world is one family, and together we shall prosper.
Thank you, Mihir. Moving on, Marva Sajid from St. Thomas Residential School, Thiruvananthapuram. Marva, your 30 seconds of time starting now.
I'm Marva Sajad, a citizen of the world. Keeping in mind that all countries were once one large continent, I like to be a global citizen, open to ideas from different cultures, from different parts of the world. I want to grow up with a cultural identity that transcends all geographical borders, shaped by my experiences. Now, I introduce myself as Marva Sajad, a student of grade 8 in St. Thomas Residential School, Trivandrum. I enjoy reading, singing, and traveling, and I like to share my experiences and thoughts through blogs, speeches, and via discussion forums like international MUNs. Thank you.
Thank you, Marva. Completing our lineup with the introductions here today is Sameer Murthy from Sri Kumaran Children's Home, Bengaluru. Sameer, your 30 seconds of time starting now.
I have a vision that our Earth will be one to last a very long time. But the efforts we need to make this vision a reality are greater than ever. A global citizen is one who is aware of and understands the wider world and their place in it. They take a stand in their communities and work with others to sustain this beautiful world. From using prize money of a quiz to starting an environment project with my friends to working for crowdfunding for NGOs like the Agar and organizations like NextGen Innovate, I have tried to embody the qualities of a good global citizen. My name is Samir V. Murthy, and I know that my efforts may be small in comparison to this huge world, but all we can do is try to make the world a better place. Thank you.
Thank you, Sameer. From NGOs to poetry to geography, sports, and environment, all of them put in beautifully in the context of global citizenship by our finalists here today. Multiple perspectives coming up in the first round, but the upcoming rounds are going to be even better, believe me. Let's move into the next round. Your thoughts. Here we go. In this round, the contestants will be given a minute's time to speak on a certain topic. The topic has already been given to them. The topic on your screen now. Economic slowdown versus health emergency. What should the world focus on? Audience, I know it sounds like a little too high for our students here today, but you will know why we have this topic. Samir, your 1 minute of time on the topic on your screen starting now.
I firmly believe that the world should focus more on health emergencies. This is because health emergencies are cases which affect the whole world, irrespective of the economic status of a country. The amount of focus we give on health emergencies is nearly not enough. 30% of deaths in hospital occur due to delayed ambulances, and more than 50% of heart attacks are uh, reach the hospitals late. When something like health emergencies is so unpredictable, it stands more to reason why we should focus on it. Especially in the current situation, saving every life matters, as without life, there exists no livelihood. During the second wave of the coronavirus in India, there was a huge lack in the number of beds, ventilators, and oxygen cylinders, and had it not been for the strong unity between countries with helping each other out, the consequences could have been so much more disastrous. Secondly, improving the health facilities of people helps reduce economic slowdown as well. Manufacturing of medicines, PPE kits, and masks are helping boost the economy as well. Furthermore, improving the health of people in emergencies enables them to live a peaceful life and contribute back to society and the economy. As Mahatma Gandhi once said, it is health that is real wealth and not pieces of gold and silver. Thank you.
Thank you, Samir. Wonderful perspective there on the topic. Let's move on to Marva. Marva, you have a minute's time starting now.
In April 2020, the worldwide unemployment rate reached 14.8%, the highest recorded since 1948. In August 2020, India's GDP shrank by a stunning 23.9% in the first quarter of financial year 21. Those are just some of the numbers of the economic slowdown resulted from the health emergency. Moving on to the health emergency. 54.9 lakh deaths and over 30 crore worldwide cases. So, which should the world focus on? My answer is the economic slowdown. Of course, the world does have to bring this pandemic under control. However, the improved economic condition of a country can ensure that decent living condition and employment are available throughout all sections of society, and stable economic growth ensures that funds are available for research, vaccines, and public health facilities. Thank you.
Well, a unique perspective there on economic slowdown versus health emergency from Marva. Let's move on to Mihir. Mihir, your 1 minute of time starting now.
The world is facing a crisis at a global level, and for every stage in the crisis, we must adapt our plans and update our priorities. At the start of this pandemic, the mortality rate was high, and our healthcare systems were crippled by the havoc caused. The need of the hour then was to focus our resources on the health emergency. But now it seems like we are at the tail end of this pandemic, and our priorities should shift accordingly. Our healthcare systems are better prepared, and with milder variants, I believe that now we must concentrate our efforts on the economy and create the 114 million jobs that were lost because of the pandemic. Of these 114 million jobs, a majority has been low paying jobs. They were lost early on and have not returned at the same pace as the pandemic's receding. The pandemic has affected the have nots much more than the middle class and above. The full extent of the economic impact is yet to reveal itself as the world is limping back to normalcy. The world now needs a strong focus on the global economic revival.
All right, thank you, Mihir. Moving on to Vasundhara from DAV Public School. Go ahead, Vasundhara. Your 1 minute of time starting now.
We all know the greatest wealth is health. Health crises not only take the lives of people but also take a toll on the economy. I strongly believe as a global citizen that it's a two-sided coin. Both economy and the health crisis must be focused based on the situation. Global leaders must intensify cooperation on epidemic preparedness and provide the necessary financing, accelerate research and development for international collective action, as tens of millions of people are at risk of falling into extreme poverty, malnutrition, and hunger. Every business should focus on adapting to the new reality. For example, online schools, IT companies completely working remotely, ensuring business continuity and profit. The primary sector, which was the most hit, should be in the priority while relaxing the lockdowns. People who have to work on the site must inevitably focus on risk assessments, subsequent arrangements, plan safe systems of work, and assess communications. The government helping the citizens with low interest loans and comprehensive relief packages is highly appreciable. I believe that the humanity can overcome this together. After all, alone we can do so little. Together we can do so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Vasundhara. Ipshito, you're next from St. Joseph's College. Your minute's time starting now.
Thank you, ma'am. As the various variants of COVID 19 continue to sweep across the world, the WHO said that it is essential that more is done so that countries receive life saving aid and coronavirus jabs as soon as possible. At this pivotal point, wherein the whole existence of the human race hangs in balance, I strongly believe as a global citizen that we should first focus on the health emergency at hand. There are numerous reasons to do this. Firstly, statistics. Statistics show us that economy is still slightly stable, with the World Bank only recording a 2% fall in GDP per capita, compared to which the WHO recorded a 2 million deaths in 2021, a drastic change from the 1.57 million recorded in 2020. The deaths are not just caused due to the pandemic, but also due to other diseases which have faded into the background. Secondly, it is a very basic reason that for economy to survive, for economy to live on, and for economy to prosper, we need the human race, because it is humans who participate in economy, who do economy, and who constitute economy. So if the humans do not survive, then how will economy survive? Hence, health should be a primary concern. Thirdly, drawing an example from real life, we have seen countries with very unstable economies like Greece make it through this pandemic. So we could say that economy did not have that much of an impact on how the pandemic as a whole was handled. Lastly, I draw something from the wording. Health is in an emergency. It is in a crisis mode. Economy is not in a crisis mode. It has just slightly slowed down. So I believe we should focus on what is already in a crisis rather than what might or might not go into a crisis situation. That being said, it is important that we stay positive and work in a single direction, be it for health or for economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Ipshito. Parvati from Sri Kumaran's Children's Home. Parvati, your time, a minute's time starting now.
I think the world should focus on health emergency. Today, quality healthcare is extremely expensive and many go into debt as they cannot afford it. The world should focus on getting quality healthcare to everyone for affordable prices. Poorer people go to government hospitals where the staff are not sufficiently learned to help with more serious diseases. If they go to private hospitals, they'll get the treatment and more, but they'll have to spend a lot of money on that. COVID 19 made government hospitals swamped with people who were sick. New patients have a place and had to go to various hospitals as there wouldn't be enough beds for everyone. I think that countries and states should have the healthcare in the societies. Though India is extremely ahead in medicines and technology, there's a certain lack in government hospitals which needs to be fixed. Therefore, I think that health emergency should be focused on as we have a current crisis happening.
Well, these are the students from classes 7, 8 and 9, ladies and gentlemen. Do not forget that. And they have a perspective, a rather unique and fresh perspective when it comes to economic slowdown versus health emergency. But you never know what happens. Let's see what happens in the next round, because the next round is a debate. The next round on your screens now. Well, the topic for the debate here today is freedom of speech, boon or bane. We are in an environment where currently it is difficult to figure out if freedom of speech is actually a boon or a bane. Let's see what perspectives our contestants have. Ladies and gentlemen, you are watching TCS ION IntelliGem's Global Citizenship Senior Category, the Grand Finale. And now we are going to start the debate. The topic of the debate is freedom of speech, boon or bane. 8 minutes of time to the entire group, starting now.
Thank you, ma'am. If freedom of speech is taken away, then dumb and silent we may be led, like sheep to the slaughter, said George Washington. A world without freedom of speech is nothing more than a prison. I want to quote an example of a famine situation which happened in both India and China in the late 1950s. India was just a newborn country. It just got the freedom, but it managed the situation better than China. Economists believe that it's because of the free speech, free press of the both people, opposition, that India was able to overcome this situation. So freedom of speech is definitely a boon, and in my view, this is a settled argument.
I strongly believe with my fellow contestant, if freedom of speech is taken away, then it will not lead to a progressive, peaceful, and prosperous society. Freedom of speech is essential for opinions to be taken into account and for views to be formed and formulated. Today, India lies in a strong position because of a strong freedom of speech, which is essential and guaranteed by the Constitution itself. Also, freedom of speech is one of the first rights to be discussed in the UDHR, occupying Articles 18 to 21 of the UDHR, which shows us how important it is in the life of the common man.
I completely agree. Freedom of speech enables individuals to speak up and ensures the active participation of citizens in the democracy. For example, the actions and writings of Nobel Peace Prize laureates Maria Ressa and Dmitry Muratov show us how responsible use of freedom of speech can benefit society. I strongly feel that people should be able to express their views and opinions without fearing government censorship. So, overall, I'm of the strong opinion that freedom of speech is a boon as it enables open communication, empowers people, and it also strengthens democracy.
To add upon Marva's views, I would like to tell something else. Only when there is freedom of speech present in the country or the globe, ideas can be exposed, debated upon, and brought into sunlight to draw consensus beneficial to the most. After all, sunlight is the best disinfectant, right?
I totally agree with my fellow contestants. The name of this round is Voice Your Views. In a real life scenario, would we be able to voice our views? In the absence of freedom of speech is a fundamental human right and it reinforces all other human rights. What this means is that freedom of speech is a primary way through which we can stand up for all our other rights in cases of dispute. This makes freedom of speech fundamental to a democracy. Freedom of speech allows each person a voice to stand up for something bigger than themselves. The opposition parties are able to find flaws in the government by freedom of speech. The people are able to address social problems through freedom of speech. With a lack of freedom of speech exists censorship, a tool used by many autocratic rulers and dictators to have complete control, a tool through which most people were denied the basic human rights. Freedom of speech ensures that everyone's concerns are heard and worked upon in an orderly fashion. This is why freedom of speech is the greatest boon gifted to mankind.
Just to make sure, you guys are talking so far about the responsible use of freedom of speech, right? So,
Yes.
what do you think we should do about the irresponsible use of freedom of speech? Considering that even the President of the United States used this right, or should I say, misuse this right to incite a coup d'etat?
Yes, Meher. So freedom of speech is like anything else in this contemporary world. Misuse leads to very deep scars. But fear of misuse cannot define the access or denial of a fundamental right, isn't it? Freedom of speech can either enslave us or empower us. It can take us into depths of misery or heights of ecstasy. So it's up to the citizens to use the power wisely and responsibly.
To
To
add,
add to Vasundhara, sorry, very sorry, Marva.
you can go on. You can go on.
To add to Vasundhara's point, indeed, freedom of speech is like a double-edged sword. It depends on how you use it. But once again, if I'm fearing that I am misusing the freedom of speech, then I am basically suppressing my own fundamental rights. By law, in the 193 countries that are a part of the UN, we cannot have this because it is an essential part of the Declaration of Human Rights. So, freedom of speech cannot be suppressed just because of fear of misuse. I'm sure various steps, as you yourself mentioned, the ex-president of the United States was since officially impeached by the House of by the Senate just because he misused one of his basic rights to incite a rebellion and storming of the Capitol, as we saw during the early to 2021.
When moreover, when we look at the history, when there was no freedom of speech in the name of misuse, for example in the French society, the old regime in the French society didn't experience the true sense of freedom of speech, because the monarchs were afraid that people would tell something against the government. The people's opinions were suppressed and they couldn't voice anything against the government, as a result of which we all know that a great revolution broke out. When the revolution broke out, people spoke out. They told what they wanted, and only then ideas of liberty and democratic rights came in. If they hadn't spoken, they would have lived as slaves forever. So there is always a catastrophic outcome when there is no freedom of speech. So we need freedom of speech for sure.
I
I would like to
completely agree, and sorry, you can go on.
I agree with Mihir's point that there are some cons to freedom of speech, especially, through social media where false news can be spread and, people misusing it. But I think we have to agree that banning freedom of speech or stopping freedom of speech is not a solution to the problems faced by freedom of speech. What we should rather try to do is to try and fix it, or we should use the government's powers to limit the consequences of freedom of speech. Because without freedom of speech, we are all just sitting ducks. What makes us different from animals? We're able to communicate our thoughts and being able to present our ideas through freedom of speech.
So I think what we agree on is that we should have a limit on on freedom of speech, but we should definitely use it. It's not
Yes,
Actually,
Exactly.
definitely.
Parvati,
Not
we do have
actually
a
a
limit
not
on
actually
the.
a limit over there.
Let's Marva go ahead,
Yeah, let
please,
Marva go ahead.
because she
Yes,
didn't speak
sure.
for a long time.
So actually, we do have a limit on the freedom of speech, as in Article 19 of the UNDHR and Article 19.2 of the Indian Constitution. These two articles give us the basic right of freedom of speech, but also set certain limitations to freedom of speech in order for citizens not to misuse it. So,
Yes, Marva. So, to add upon Marva's view, there is always a thin line of difference between the restrictions and using the freedom of speech. Like, there's always a difference between
exactly.
freedom of
There's a,
speech
it's a
and
very thin line of difference, but there's
very
still a
thin
difference.
line. So, a well defined legal framework with a rigorous follow up and a well informed public opinion can definitely help that one man's view doesn't injure the other man's sentiments.
Do you
And I will
realize?
also,
Sorry, go ahead. My bad.
you can go ahead. I've spoken way too much. You can go ahead.
Okay. Like, I'm not trying to say that we should completely ban freedom of speech. I'm just saying there should be limitations, because five people lost their lives that day, because simply because we were not fast enough to act upon somebody inciting a rebellion. And I think maybe we need to acknowledge the fact that this is because we are changing our definition of freedom. There have to be limitations.
Definitely. There
Of
have
course.
to be limitations. It can't be absolute or unconditional. We'll have,
Students, you have one more
definitely,
minute.
we'll have restriction, but um,
We
we shouldn't
shouldn't
ban
cross our
completely.
limits. We should spread
Agreed.
fake news. We should use it as it is meant to be used, as it was meant to be used.
Yes, exactly. So,
We should also try to erase the misconception that freedom of speech means you can say anything at any time, at any place against anyone you want.
yes, so
Yes.
we shouldn't use freedom of speech as a license to abuse. We'll have to take it as responsibility as citizens together, as global citizens together. So we have come into the consensus that freedom of speech is boon, but it comes with certain responsibilities, and a well defined legal framework and a rigorous follow up can definitely help it. So do everybody agree upon the consensus?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's
That's great, ma'am. So this is our uh, final
Point of view.
conclusion.
Yeah.
I think
consensus.
you all should become the parliament of our country. I mean, this is the most peaceful debate I've ever been a part of. Everyone were in agreement from the very beginning. But wonderful. It's good to know that students, school students of classes 7, 8 and 9 have perspectives that are so responsible in nature. That's something that adults like us should be learning from them. Now, I'm not saying they're not prepared, they're definitely prepared on this topic, but to interpret the topic in a manner that is really responsible is something that they've done very, very beautifully. Congratulations to all of you on that. That was really well done and good perspectives from all of you. Moving on, ladies and gentlemen, to the fourth round of our grand finale of Global Citizenship Senior. Here today, your global perspective. Here we go. After the most peaceful debate ever, we come to the round that's called Your Global Perspective. Here, the students are posed with a question of choosing one of the SDGs from the United Nations, and they need to choose that as a focus area, and they have to explain to us on why they have chosen that particular SDG as a focus area. Now, this can be interpreted on multiple levels. It can be a focus area for themselves, for their school, for their state, for their nation, or for the globe as a whole. The interpretation is left to our finalists. All right, let's start with Parvati. Which one would you choose, Parvati? You have about a minute's time, so try not to go beyond that, but of course we will allow you to finish. Parvati, which SDG would
I'm
you go ahead with?
I'm choosing gender inequality goal 5.
Go ahead.
Gender inequality is a huge problem in modern day society. Women and men are treated differently. For example, in quite a few companies, a man and a woman who have the same position will be treated differently. The male will be given a higher salary while the woman will have a reduced salary. Another example is of an unemployed man and a woman. The man would be called unemployed while the woman would be called a housewife. I find this extremely unfair. In a scenario where both are equal, if the male is treated higher than the woman, this is simply unfair. STEM or Science, Technology, Engineering and Math is a wing which many thought women weren't capable of doing. Here are a few examples of successful women in STEM. Radia Perryman, inventor and computer scientist; Grace Hopper, inventor and computer scientist; Katherine Johnson, NASA space scientist. There are so many who have succeeded, and more join the lines every day. Women and girls are having a fair chance at education now and are getting treated more equally.
Ipshito, can you go next?
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
The, the Sustainable Development Goals are essential for the continued survival of life on the planet. However, one which stands out to me is the 10th goal, which says reduced inequalities. Reducing inequalities in order to ensure that no one gets left behind is essential in achieving the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Inequalities within and among countries is a persistent cause of concern. The COVID-19 pandemic has deepened existing inequalities, hitting the poorest and most vulnerable communities the hardest. The COVID-19 pandemic has also put a spotlight on the economic inequalities and fragile social safety nets. On the economic front, it has exposed that it has dramatically slashed workers' incomes and drastically increased global unemployment rates. It is a crisis in its own way. However, what can be a crisis can always be an opportunity. Leveraging this moment wherein policies and social norms are more malleable than in normal times to take big, bold steps can turn the tide on inequalities. Hence, that is why, if I were given a choice to choose out of the 17 SDG goals, I'd choose to work on reduced inequalities. Because for me, if everyone stays on the same pace, then we can steer the world back on track into achieving the rest of the goals. That will be all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ipshito. Vasundhara from DAV Public School in Chennai, you're next. What is the SDG that you would go ahead with?
SDG number 1, ma'am.
Go ahead.
The world's greatness is measured by how it treats its weakest members. Hence, my choice is SDG number 1, zero poverty, meaning ending poverty in all its forms everywhere. I, as a global citizen, strongly believe feeding the hungry and wiping out diseases can give everyone in the world a chance to prosper and live a productive and rich life. I would like to work on this as every other SDGs has some prerequisites which can only be met when the person is out of poverty. For example, education has different preconditions such as access, availability, affordability, and quality, which can only be met when the people are above the poverty line. Globally, people living in extreme poverty had declined from 36% in 1990 to 10% in 2015. Unfortunately, the health crisis has led to worst consequences. I strongly believe that humanity will overcome this together. Martin Luther King once said, "There's nothing new about poverty. What is new, however, is that we have resources to get over this." Thank you.
Thank you, Vasundhara. Up next is Mihir Apte from the Orchid School, Pune. Mihir, what SDG would you choose?
Yeah, I'd like to pick SDG number 17.
Go ahead.
Yeah. These 17 Sustainable Development Goals are a blueprint to achieve a more sustainable future for all humans, regardless of nationality, race, religion, or gender. We are aiming to achieve these colossal goals, and it is simply impossible to even get close without complete global cooperation. The pandemic has exposed the lack of cooperation in the health industry and the weaknesses in many sectors. And I believe that without more organized efforts at increased global cooperation, these SDGs will fail. Let me tell you a story. I am a part of an activity called Read a Story, where we work with children from rural areas to improve their spoken English. This is a symbiotic partnership for both me and the student, as the knowledge I share is given back twofold in the form of his experiences. And I believe that even the smallest attempt at a partnership can go a long way in achieving these goals. In my eyes, this is the first step.
All right. Thank you, Mihir. Marva, you're next. She's from the St. Thomas Residential School, Trivandrum. Which SDG would you choose, Marva?
SDG number 7, affordable and clean energy.
Go ahead.
Thank you, ma'am. The global population is expected to reach 8.5 billion by 2030. The increasing energy demands of the increasing population necessitates improving energy efficiency and finding new, clean sources of energy. Let me introduce one clean source, hydrogen. It has an efficiency of 60%, while petrol has an efficiency of 41%. As a fuel, it's essentially pollution free, while petrol and diesel have toxic emissions that harm not only us humans but also the planet. However, hydrogen is not currently the most affordable choice. Work is being done on reducing the cost of the fuel and the vehicles that run on it. In addition, renewable sources of energy such as solar and wind are being promoted by governments around the world. Coming to electricity, 759 million people live without access to electricity. However, here too there's hope. National governments, along with international bodies and NGOs, could tackle this issue. Affordable and clean energy is an area I would like to focus on as it decides the future of a sustainable planet. Thank you.
Thank you, Marva. And concluding this round for us here today is Samir. Samir, which one would you choose?
Ma'am, I will be choosing goal number 15, life on land.
Go ahead, Samir.
Animals and plants have always fascinated me, but the more I learned, the more I understood we need to preserve and protect these creatures. To maintain a healthy ecological balance on this earth, animals, plants, and marine species are as important as humans. But with all the poaching and forest cover being destroyed for agriculture, this balance has stepped. The US has declared that 22 animals went extinct in 2021. At this rate, animal life and human life may cease to exist without the proper ecological balance. The stories of Jim Corbett and Salim Ali will be the last remnants of these wonderful creatures. The qualities of global citizenship, like cooperation and humanity, are essentially required to meet this sustainable development goal and to save these creatures. I started a project with my friends where we placed nest boxes for birds around our school campus on trees for them to take shelter, as their habitat was severely being lost due to deforestation. I wish to take more initiatives towards helping save the lives of many more animals and birds. Charles Darwin rightly stated, the love for all living creatures is the most noble attribution of man.
Thank you, Samir. Those were all the global perspectives for you. Ladies and gentlemen, don't forget you're watching TCS ION IntelliGem Global Citizenship's grand finale for the senior category. Let's now move into the final round of our event, of our finale here today, jury time. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, like I told you in the very beginning, I have two doctors with me here today. One a medical doctor and the second one with a PhD. Let me introduce the medical doctor first. Dr. Sabah Mohammed Mansoor. She's joining us from the United Kingdom. She is an MD in Public Health and Emergency Medicine, and she's worked as an expert and a consultant for the government in immunization, which was supported by UNICEF. She spent 5 years teaching young medical students in community health. She's an advocate of mental health among medical students, and she has a special interest in music and dance and is a certified Zumba instructor. And she also provides career advice on to medical students after their undergraduation. Dr. Sabah, thank you so much for joining us. You have a very unique combination of being a doctor and being a certified Zumba instructor. I think our contestants would be very inspired with that. Thank you for joining us here today.
Thank you so much, Rashmi, for making me a part of this amazing program. This is my first time that I'm interacting with such young talent who knows so much about the world, and a new concept called Global Citizen, where they're all trying their very best from, to try to contribute to the society at such a young age. So this is something which is very new, and I'm really looking forward for you all to grow up and be the global citizens you want to be in the future and contribute your very best in bringing out all these changes in the sustainable development goals to achieve these at the maximum. So I'm really impressed by the juniors as well, and I can see how you maturely handle such political and such controversial topics. So I am humbled to be a jury in this competition, and you all are winners according to me. I can see the potential in each and every one, and all the best to you all.
Thank you, Dr. Sabah. The next doctor, of course, is Dr. Shashikanta. He is a professor at National Institute of Technology, Karnataka. He's a teaching experience spanning over 2 decades, and he has a PhD in literature and music. He's a professor of communications and literature at NITK and has published several papers, been a co-writer of many books, and is also a regular invitee for many guest lectures. He's also a birder and can identify over 100 birds. He's a classical musician and has also been a swimmer, a national level swimmer at a competitive level. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Shashikant. Students, if I may add, if you all are nervous about the jury today, don't be. Even I am nervous. Dr. Shashikant was my teacher while I was studying. So I too am a little nervous hosting in front of him here today. Dr. Shashikant, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for making time and joining us here today.
So I was saying, I was really humbled in being in the midst of these students. It was really, really marvelous competition between these students and the way they argued out things, the kind of clarity they had about issues and global issues, the global politics and things like that. It was really marvelous, and I learned so much being in the midst of you students. So thank you for this, and yeah, I look forward to uh, interacting with you through questions. Yes, thank you so much.
Well, finalists, it's truly an honor to get that kind of a compliment from someone who's done a PhD saying he has learned from you. So you all should be very proud of yourselves today. All right, judges, we have 6 contestants with us here today. So both of you would question 3 each. So we'll divide all the 6 finalists between the two of you. You can choose whom you want to speak with, and you can ask them any question based on what they have spoken or anything that is related and relevant to global citizenship. Sabha, you want to go ahead first?
So I would like to pick Mr. Samir Murthy.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So you were talking about life on land.
Yes, ma'am.
Um, are you familiar with the word veganism?
Veganism. Yes, ma'am.
Veganism. All right, veganism. So are you comfortable with that topic?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I am a staunch non-vegetarian vegetarian. How would you convince me to stick to veganism with your life on land perspective?
Yes, ma'am. So one of the things which is the primary cause of global warming and the greenhouse effect is emissions from animals basically raised for poultry and cattle. And the fact is that the amount of energy that can be conserved through eating plants is 90% more than the amount of energy that is required to eat an animal. This is because of this thing known as the 10% law. The 10% law states that any animal or plant from a trophic level only contributes to 10% of the next animal's energy. So this energy conversion tells us that if we shorten the length from producer, which is the sun, all the way down to us by going through the plant route, we can ultimately save so much more energy, and this can contribute so much more to society. Additionally, the amount of space taken for cattle rearing in the world is so much more compared to that taken for plants. And this is a huge problem because cattle rearing is one of the main causes why trees are being chopped down and why forest cover is being converted to agricultural land. And there are new products coming right now like vegan meats, which provide an alternative for people who cannot directly change from being non-vegetarian, because I am a non-vegetarian as well. So I'm also, I still eat non-veg, but I've reduced the amount that I eat like by a lot just to ensure that I can contribute to this goal. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Samir. Thank you, Dr. Sabha. Dr. Shashikant, who would you want to choose?
My question is to Ipshito. Hi, Ipshito.
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. So you were talking about reduced inequality in your
Yes, sir.
penultimate round. Um, so when we look around the world, there is so much of competition, right? Competition between individuals, competition between societies, competition between communities, between countries, between races, class, caste. So there is competition everywhere, right?
Yes, sir.
And when we think of sustainability, we need to think of collaboration and cooperation, right?
Yes, sir.
So how do we actually reconcile between these two concepts? You know, competition on one hand and collaboration and cooperation on the other. How
So
do
that
we?
is, yes, so
Yeah,
that is
yes,
very
yes.
much possible. The way forward is collaboration with healthy competition. This was proved a few years back by USA and China, who we know are staunch enemies. USA and China collaborated in order to find out better uses for energy and affordable and clean energy, because they were two of the biggest energy consumers on the planet. So they proved to us that if even if you're enemies, you can collaborate and create something better, because when collaboration occurs, the ideas merge in together and create something that is better than what the individuals would have done. So I believe the way forward is not to eradicate all competition, keep healthy competition, but proceed with collaboration all the same.
Good, Ipsito. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
sir.
Pshito. Dr. Sabha, whom would you want to go ahead with?
Hi.
Yes, ma'am.
Parvati, your topic was on gender inequality, right?
Yeah.
So I feel the thought process starts from a very young age on how do you treat genders equally. So coming on to school or at home, how do you think you can bring about a change being the only girl in the house or in the school? How do you think the thought process of having gender equality can be done at the very young age?
I think that definitely you have, definitely that the thought process is involved. So you have to show that, like for the STM research wing, that part especially, you can show that you can do it. You have to show that you can do what even males can do. You have to show that you're equal to them, but you shouldn't go like overboard with it. You should show it in a level like you can show that if you practice a technology and if you go for computer lessons that you can do it, and or like when we're the only girl in the house or in a class, if you're the only girl, then we shouldn't get baited if someone starts saying that we're not as good as them. We should try to show, instead of telling something back to them, we should try to show with our actions that we're maybe as good as them or even better. We shouldn't keep retaliating with our words. That would help with that, because they'll just be even more into that mindset that we're not as good as them. So we have to practice and show that we are equal to them, and we're not just supposed to be, we're not inferior to them, and we should show that we're as equal as them.
Okay, let me put it in this way. If you were the headmistress of a school, how would you try to bring about gender equality or a thought of having a gender equality at school if you're the headmistress?
I'd firstly I'd show uh, firstly I'd give a speech about it and how we're equal to others. Then secondly, what I would tell is that I'd give examples of real day things. Like since I was a he- I since I in that scenario I would be a headmistress. I'd show that I'm just as equal to a headmaster, and I can equally be as good. Then for the students who would be there, then those people could those everyone would have the same schedule, and they wouldn't have separate things like only one subject for someone and one another subject for someone. That wouldn't be there. I would show that everyone can be equally as good as each other. So I think that I mostly show I would mostly show a speech and actions that can show that each gender is equal to each other.
Thank you, Pavati.
All right. Thank you, Parvati. Dr. Shashikant, whom would you want to go ahead with next?
Yeah, my question would be to Vasundhara.
Yes, sir. Good
Is she
evening.
there? Yes. Good evening, Vasundhara. You were talking about zero poverty as one of the goals, right?
Yes, sir.
So what happens is, nowadays the idea of welfare state is slowly receding. Welfare state, that the countries basically have to look after their citizens in terms of, food, shelter, and so on, right? So the idea of welfare state is slowly reducing, and states or countries are becoming more and more law and order kind of countries. They have to keep up the law and order. That seems to be the prime motive or prime aim of the nation states nowadays. So in that context, when the idea of welfare is slowly reducing or receding, how do you think we can address poverty? Because corporations are taking over, right? So corporations are becoming more and more powerful. Companies are becoming more and more powerful. They are having the diktat over a period of time. We have seen that they are, in fact, some companies are more powerful than many other countries, many other nation states. So in that context, when corporations are taking over, do you think we can address the phenomenon of poverty in a real sense, actually?
Yes, sir. We can definitely address even if corporates or the companies take over. Uh, I will cover both of the both points of view, sir. So when they take over, the corporates and the companies take over, we'll have to remember that Bill Gates once, yeah, he's still a philanthropist and he contributes. So that can be a positive side. Like they have a lot of money and they have the potential to help the people to get out of poverty. So at that and in that point of view, they can definitely help in reducing poverty. Coming to the other statement which says that it is the state is more law and order, it revolves more on law and order rather than focusing on welfare of the citizen. I would say that the way would be freedom of speech. We have been granted freedom of speech over the globe. So mostly most countries over the globe, the citizens have freedom of speech. So they'll have to voice their problems. They'll have to tell what they're really undergoing. If they don't tell, it's going to be a catastrophic event which is going to happen, because poverty is the parent of crime and revolution. And when we don't address it, we know what really happens. So the governments should focus on it, and the way is the citizens, as responsible citizens, we'll have to take up to the government that we are facing so and so issues and we want so and so solutions, or we can ask them on the solutions, but we'll definitely have to speak up.
Okay. Thank you, Sundara.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Good.
sir.
Vasundhara. Well, that leaves us with Marva and Mihir. Dr. Sabha, whom would you want to go ahead with?
Okay. I would go with Mihir. Hello, Mihir. Are you there?
Yes, hi.
Okay. So, Mihir, let's combine two topics. Your main topic was partnerships for the goals. Okay. Well, I know you know the importance of partnership, collaboration and partnerships. So, we would take one topic of your previous discussion, that is economic slowdown. You know, you're very well aware that COVID has hampered the economic stability of, a chunk of population. And health emergencies has already, it's already been a consequence of the pandemic. So, economic slowdown has already begun. So, the collaboration in the health emergencies are already done by the medical NGOs and UN, United Nations, and everything. How do you think the partnerships or global partnerships can help in the economic slowdown in here?
So what we realized through the pandemic when international trade was down, was that we are a lot less independent than we think, in the sense that a lot of the resources we need and we require come from other nations. And that system is very fragile, because if the COVID pandemic stopped it, then who's to say a similar catastrophe won't stop it again? And I think one of the first steps we could take could be to sorry, just a minute. It would be to strengthen the trade routes and to make it easier for us to be interdependent, while also being prepared for a scenario where we may not uh, for a scenario like the pandemic.
Okay, let me make it simpler. If you were the Prime Minister of India, how would you try to make up for the economic slowdown at present?
Obviously, one of the topics that we were talking about in school this morning actually was how the shopkeepers and the malls and the people that work there in general were so badly affected by the lockdown. So I think one of the first steps I take as the Prime Minister of India would be to grant subsidies and, in general, just do the best that I can to make life easier for the people that were affected.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Mihir. So that leaves us with Marva. Dr. Shashikant, your question for her, please.
Yeah. Uh, Hi, Marwa.
Hi, sir.
Yeah. You were speaking about clean energy and renewable energy and so on.
Yes, sir.
So when you think about a country, developing country like India, or even underdeveloped countries, maybe in Africa or anywhere else, um, there are no certain lobbies that work for traditional forces. Okay, so when we talk about energy here, even in the energy sector, we will have traditional forces which are traditionally producing energies. Okay, and they have their own lobbies, right? So we have uh, companies which produce traditional energy or conventional energy and having their own lobbies, and then on the other hand, we are trying to promote whatever that means. We are trying to promote clean energy or renewable energy, right? So, how do you think the government should take up this challenge of promoting clean energy, even as they are facing the lobbies from the part of these traditionally energy producing companies or corporations?
So, thank you for the question. I feel that promoting clean energy can be ensured by letting citizens know how clean energy can help them, not only the planet but also the citizens, their health for one. And for example, I spoke about hydrogen. It's not only clean; it's way more efficient than our traditional fuels. So even if some companies that produce traditional fuels might oppose to this, we can create a new economy out of this, new businesses. So, and I feel that governments can create awareness about the need, especially in India. People need to understand the awareness about the need for clean and I would call efficient energy. The loss of energy should be less. We should be able to utilize energy systems with green buildings, smart grids, efficient transportation systems. So I think if all of those factors come in it.
Okay, so you mean to say that we need to have a strong public opinion which will guide the country as a whole, so to
Of
say.
course, if people are not willing to change, then where's the change?
Okay, thank you, Marwa.
Thank
All
you, sir.
right, thank you, Marva. Ladies and gentlemen, one thing is very, very clear from today's event, that our future is definitely safe at the hands of these children. Well, if school children of classes 7, 8 and 9 have these kind of perspectives, we can only imagine what they will become when they grow up. Well, Dr. Sabha, Dr. Shashikant, thank you so much. I think your questions were in the direction of pushing these children to think a little bit beyond what they had prepared and probably beyond what they usually think. And that should definitely help them. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now take leave and identify who the winner of this contest would be. Don't go anywhere. We have many more grand finales of the TCS iON IntelliGem coming up for you. So you stay tuned and watch all of them. Thank you so much for joining us on this Global Citizenship Senior Grand Finale of TCS iON IntelliGem. And I will see you at the other events. You take care.